Being one of my favorite games as a child, Plants vs. Zombies managed to age like fine Parmesan before EA's incorrect assumptions of what the series should have looked like. Regardless, the first, and to a certain extent the second game, are still fun to play today, but it's the first one that I'm looking at here at this time. What makes this game for me is a few things. The Zen Garden, versus mode on console, although the footage you'll be seeing was taken from my iPad, but I also enjoyed the varied lineup of plants that were introduced to the world in this classic. So I'm making it my job today to count down my 10 favorite plants in the game. This is going to be one of my more subjective lists, but I do want to establish some rules. Every plant can be a candidate for this list, however, lily pad, flowerpot, and imitator will not be included, as two of those just allow you to plant on the water or on the roof, and imitator only gives a second seed slot for most plants. Since cooldowns are very consistent compared to the second game, that won't be a factor for this list. However, the price and function will be taken into consideration, and the function will be the most important factor this time. I also chose to include plants that function somewhat differently on this list, so that I could talk about a wide variety of plants for this video. This list may be a bit loosely put together, but I'll do my best to support it. With all that said, let's get started. My name is Phoenix, and this is my top 10 plants in Plants vs. Zombies. Let's go! Up first is a plant obtained pretty late in the game, with a function that gives it the trait that I like to call situationally busted. By that, I mean that it's incredibly strong, but requires just the right conditions or levels to be that way. The plant I'm referring to is Magnetrum, as its usefulness is very hard to ignore, though oftentimes isn't necessary. Obtained after completing 4-8, Magnetrum will steal metal objects from zombies, which sometimes only functions as stealing armor from bucketheads or football zombies, but other zombies lose their special ability as well. Jack-in-the-Box can no longer explode, Ladder Zombie cannot climb over defensive plants anymore, and Pogo Zombie now has to eat your plants in order to get past, and is now vulnerable to butter and freezing in addition. And that only scratches the surface of what Magnetrum can do to disrupt the zombies. And on top of that, most of the time, one column of magnets is enough for the whole level, as it only takes about 15 seconds for them to ready themselves again after stealing something, meaning the only time where it won't help much is in endless mode. The only drawback is that, because they're a mushroom, you'll need to use Coffee Bean with them if you plan to use them during the daytime. However, this isn't too bad, as you'll most likely be ready to place them down once the heavy hitters start coming, and by then you'll have all of your sunflowers set up. It's a good thing they won't steal my armor Are you serious? The upgrade plants in Dave's shop are quite varied in terms of their quality, so some are definitely better than others. However, be prepared to see a few of these guys appear on this list, and for good reason. One of the most notable also happens to be one that surprisingly works well near the beginning of levels, that being Cattail. Cattail serves as the upgrade for Lilypad and seems to be the inspiration for what would become Homing Thistle in the second game. Cattail fires 2 spikes at a time, which lock onto whatever zombie it chooses to target, so placing one down as early as possible in a level can let you cover all 6 lanes with one plant, giving you time to plant the rest of your sunflowers. Also, because the projectiles are spikes, they can pop balloons. In fact, they will immediately target balloon zombies as their highest priority. This means you won't need cactus or blower, so you can have 2 of these to prevent any balloons from getting through no matter what. And the final big pointer is that despite not being able to do so on Tangle Cup or Sea Shroom, you can plant Pumpkin on Cattail, since it was originally Lilypad. So it's a great starting plant that covers the early parts of levels, and despite costing 250 sun, it'll keep you covered for quite some time, on top of being able to create new strategies for pool and fog levels. Who needs cactus at all? Explosives are powerful in Plants vs. Zombies, as they cause massive damage to whatever area they're planted in, enough to kill most zombies instantly a second after they're placed. But without any doubt, the strongest one also happens to be the most devastating, and not just to the zombies. Let's be real, Doomshroom is an absolutely absurd explosive, and it's an infamous one for a reason. Doomshroom is the final plant you get in the night levels after completing 2-8, and it delivers a blast that does as much damage as Cherry Bomb, but over a 5x5 area, sometimes even catching a couple stragglers outside of that. It's a devastating explosive that can destroy just about every zombie on screen. However, it also leaves behind a crater on the tile that it was planted on, even going so far as to destroy the lily pad or flower pot it was planted on as well. So yes, it's insanely powerful and can make the final waves in most levels look like a complete joke, but it of course doesn't come without its consequences. One of which being that it's a mushroom, meaning you need Coffee Bean for it to explode during the daytime. This means that it goes from being a 125 sun cost explosive to a 200 sun cost explosive, and it's also highly vulnerable when it's just sitting there. This means that the most powerful explosive is way too risky to use in endless mode, not just for the fact that it may get eaten or run over very quickly, but the crater left behind would block a tile that you'll need for other explosives. Despite that, it's still one of the most destructive weapons that you can bring into a level, and can make a mockery of most zombies with just one blast. Good thing there's no radiation in this explosive. Plants across the first and second game take several different roles: attack, defense, and sun production just to name a few, but a bit more obscure are support plants. However, just because they're not as famous as the original set of pea shooter, sunflower, walnut, and potato mine doesn't mean that they aren't very good at their job. Enter the Torchwood, easily the best support class plant in the game. Torchwood will light any peas that pass over it on fire, doubling the damage that they do, essentially drastically speeding up a lot of levels from 3-8 onwards if you use pea shooters and repeaters as your main strategy. Not only this, but the flaming peas now gain splash damage only countered by shields or Zamboni. This allows levels to be sped up a lot, and when paired with one other plant that we'll talk about later, it'll make even your lawnmower seem ineffective. However, the Torchwood is pricey, at 175 sun, and also doesn't work with everything. Anything that isn't a pea shooter won't be boosted by Torchwood, but in addition to that, Split Pea struggles to work with it, as well as Torchwood directly clashing with Snow Pea and Ice Shroom. You'll notice I never use Torchwood and an Ice Plant together in the same level, and that's because Fire and Ice don't work together in this game. Apart from that, Torchwood is used very well when used correctly, and can make any level go about 3 times faster. Shouldn't it also work with Fume Shroom though? Speaking of Fume Shroom, despite my disbelief that the fumes it shoots aren't flammable somehow, they are still able to make up for that with crowd control that cannot be stopped, but it also has an upgrade that not only has been the main pickings for speedruns at the end of the game, but also the main damage dealer in a near airtight survival endless strategy. That would happen to be Gloomshroom, as he trades out his mid-range fume shot with an 8-direction heavy fume, hitting hard at close range and paving the way for what would eventually become Fat Beat and eventually Silver Sword, although I'm still praying that we'll see PvZ3 in the future. Gloomshroom may be a bit meticulous to work with, but when used correctly, they will dish out some serious pain. Gloomshroom is pretty expensive, costing 225 sun at night and 300 in the daytime due to the requirement for Coffee Bean once again. However, it's an excellent counter to zombies like Pole Vaulter and Digger, as it can also attack behind itself better than Split Pea can do. And since it does heavy damage, it'll make quick work of them all. Lining 3 of them up in a row can stop even the hardiest of zombies from getting through to the first one placed in their own row. As a whole, Gloomshroom has a lot of strengths which lead to the most concrete strategies in the game when used correctly, but falls short because of his meticulous methods in order to actually use correctly. Sorry if I made you sad. Similarly to Gloomshroom, this next plant makes it up here because of its damage per second, and it's one that is accessible from a much earlier point in the game. The first upgrade plant in the game, Gatling Pea. Some people may be confused about my placement here, but there's a good reason why this soldier is up here. Gatling Pea has the highest DPS out of all attacking plants in the game, as it fires 4 peas at once, essentially like planting 2 repeaters on top of each other. As such, it's a compact attacker that can dish out a ton of pain all on one tile. And this isn't even considering the fact that, because it's a pea shooter, it can be boosted by Torchwood, doubling its DPS again on top of the added splash damage. Gatling Pea, alongside Gloomshroom, can dramatically speed up levels when used correctly, and to even greater effect due to its longer range, higher attack rate, ability to be boosted by Torchwood, and not needing Coffee Bean to use during the daytime. However, there is one drawback, that being its price. Gatling Pea is the 3rd most expensive plant in the game, costing a total of 450 sun, 200 for the repeater, and an additional 250 for the upgrade. So it does cost more than just placing 2 repeaters and has a much slower recharge, but when used properly, Gatling Pea will absolutely shred through levels with little the zombies can do about it. Now if only we didn't get an absurd number of variants for this. This will likely be one of the most controversial choices on this list, as I've heard very mixed opinions about this guy, but there's no doubt that when this guy is used correctly, once again, he is absolutely busted. At number 4, Starfruit. Okay, let's get the obvious negatives out of the way. His DPS isn't as high as Gatling Pea, he can't be boosted by Torchwood, he doesn't shoot straight forward, his damage can be a bit inconsistent, all things that would place him low on the list under even Torchwood. However, most people who trash this guy don't realize how strong it can be, especially for levels that aren't as chaotic. Starfruit is obtained after completing 4-6 and immediately can show his strengths after setting up. Starfruit fires in 5 directions, diagonally forward, both up and down, directly up and down, and directly behind. This means that they absolutely flood the screen with projectiles in all directions, making it so you can fill the land lanes and pool and fog levels with them, and on your second round of adventure mode, having cattails in your pool can help cover more lanes, essentially invalidating the need to use Cactus or Split Pea at all, on top of being one of the most fun plants to use, despite not being the fastest. Add on an incredibly cheap 125 sun cost, and this is one of the most reliable plants in the game, especially for adventure mode. Now if only Moonflower could have been good. The final adventure mode plant on this list, it's fair to say that defensive plants are pretty lackluster. Oftentimes they aren't needed, and quite a few zombies can ignore or instantly destroy them. They're normally just a waste of space, but it's the lack of that problem that makes Pumpkin such a powerful wall. Obtained just after Starfruit after completing 4-7, Pumpkin essentially has the same HP as Walnut and even a slightly more bulky hitbox. However, it can be planted on top of another plant instead of needing a separate tile. As such, Pumpkin single-handedly makes a lot of the best strategies in the game nigh impenetrable, on top of them already being strong with their DPS. Pumpkin essentially gives anything it's planted on much higher health, capable of stalling zombies for a long time, amplified even more if chilled. This utility makes Pumpkin an essential item for later adventure levels and just about any survival level, especially for Survival Endless. It's not Gloomshroom or Umbrella Leaf or Cob Cannon that makes the best Survival Endless strats nearly airtight. It's Pumpkin, and it is absurd how much his impact matters. The Gloomshrooms and Cattails in the pool have no chance of surviving for long without him. And yes, he will need to be replaced eventually, but it'll take a while before he has to. It's a shame that he didn't make 5-5 any bearable. So where do we go from there? I've talked about 5 adventure plants and 3 upgrades, and they all have their strengths. However, I have yet to bring up the most important plant in the game. None of the plants you've seen on this list would be anywhere near as good without the sunflower, although there was always room for a second head. The twin sunflower may seem like a gimme for a list like this, but I'm sure everyone here realizes just how much the twin sunflower can contribute to any strategy in the game. Twin sunflower may cost 4 times as much as a normal sunflower for only twice the sun production, but just like Gatling Pea, saving space can be a huge difference in any strategy, and in the long run, having twice as efficient as sun production makes a lot of survival strategies easier to set up. And it's even usable in plenty of adventure levels in the second run. Sun production is so important in games like this, it's nigh invaluable. More important than Pumpkin reinforcing everything or Gatling Pea making mincemeat of everything when placed behind Torchwood. And the Twin Sunflower may not have the best value, but it is easily the most efficient sun producer in the game, and doesn't require anything other than a sunflower to place on. 200 sun is nothing compared to what you'll get out of this. You'll get thousands of sun before you know it. Some people may have been wondering where Melon Pult was going to be on this list, and the truth is, he wasn't included. Now you may think I'm saying that because I was using it as an excuse to talk about Magnet Shroom, but I also stated that I wanted to include a bunch of plants with unique functions to prevent any rehash in what I'm talking about. And to be honest, if you've played Plants vs. Zombies before, you should already know what number 1 would be. Melon Pult may be the last plant that you unlock in the adventure, but it would only be the stepping stone for its upgrade. Wintermelon is one of the most notoriously strong plants in the game for a very good reason. Combining the heavy splash damage of the Melon Pult and the chilling effect from the Snow Pea makes this catapult a plant with near perfect performance. The Snow Pea can be considered as a foil to Repeater, having half the DPS but giving them just over twice the amount of time to defeat zombies due to their chill effect, slowing their movement and eat speeds. If Snow Pea is to Repeater, Wintermelon is to Gatling Pea, but even more so. Melon Pult's DPS is comparable to Repeater, and Wintermelon has the same damage per second with half the DPS of Gatling Pea. However, since Wintermelon is a lob shot plant, it isn't hindered by the incline of the roof where Gatling Pea would be. This means that it's able to be placed in the backlines of any formation with no consequences as long as you prepare for Digger or Catapult zombies with Pumpkin or Umbrella Leaf. Combine that with the splash damage and Wintermelon can chill a large group of zombies with no effort. Gatling Pea may have a higher damage per second and be boosted by Torchwood, but Wintermelon can easily solo bucket heads without help, on top of slowing just about anyone else unfortunate enough to get a melon to their own melon. Those helmets will only help so much. Wintermelon has to be number 1, because it causes huge amounts of damage to large groups of zombies, on top of stalling them for a long time, making them an incredibly powerful part of some of the best Survival Endless strategies. It may cost 500 sun, making it the second most expensive plant in the game besides Cob Cannon at 700, but it's this expensive for a reason. It's a powerful plant that will not only provide heavy damage, but a massive support so any other attackers can join the fun. Those 10,000 coins were more than worth it. Well, another list down. I'm having lots of fun putting these together, and only now have I had a chance to talk about a game that was a big part of my childhood. I also got to try out a couple new things for this video, so I apologize if it looks a bit different than my last videos. However, I also want to point out that I did not expect my last list to blow up as much as it has. It's become my most successful video by far after 3 days of being dormant, and I truly cannot thank you all enough. I would also like to thank you, as just this week, we have reached over 250 subscribers for this channel. It means so much to me that I can maintain an audience at all, despite my slow start to my channel, and here's hoping that this continues in the future. I have lots more lists planned, and I can't wait to branch out farther than just my Switch and iPad. So with all of that said, let's close this video out. If you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to leave a like and comment "my cabbages" down below so I know you made it to the end. If you want to see more from me in the future, then please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future uploads. My next list may be more controversial than usual, as I talk about the best world plants in Plants vs. Zombies 2. I understand this game has some faults because of EA, but I do still have a couple ideas for it. And if you have a difference of opinion for this list, then feel free to share it in a nice way in the comments below. That'll be it for me for this video. I will see you next time. Farewell.